Welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping straight into a truly fascinating historical text detailing the lives, the monumental achievements, and the eventual deaths of 10 foundational figures in early Islamic history. You might know them as the 10 Promised Paradise. So let's dive right in and see exactly how their individual stories wove together to help build an absolute empire.
To make this dense history a bit easier to digest, we've broken things down into 4 main parts. First up, the first 4 caliphs, then warriors and early converts, after that, wealth, trust, and piety, and we'll wrap up with the final legacies.
Part 1, the first 4 caliphs, leading the state. We're starting with the foundational leaders, the rightly guided caliphs who took on the absolutely immense burden of leading the community right after the prophet.
Looking at this timeline, we kick things off with Abu Bakr. According to the text, he was the very first man to accept Islam. He ruled for just about 2 years, but he guided the state through the intense wars of apostasy and even kicked off the very first compilation of the Quran. He passed away naturally at age 63 in the year 13 AH and was buried right beside the prophet.
Now, it's really fascinating how the source contrasts the legacies of the second and third caliphs. Umar ibn al-Khattab had a 10-year rule that was defined by just massive administrative leaps. He literally founded the Diwan system and set up the Bayt al-Mal, which was the state treasury. On the flip side, Uthman ibn Affan, who was a very wealthy early convert known as the possessor of 2 lights, left behind this towering religious legacy. It was actually under his rule that the Quran was compiled into one single unified text, known as the Mus'haf.
But as our source points out, there's a pretty stark and tragic parallel between these 2 highly influential leaders. They were both ultimately martyred. Umar was actually assassinated while he was actively leading prayers in the Prophet's mosque in 23 AH, and then 12 years later, in 35 AH, Uthman was besieged by rebels and killed in his own home while he was peacefully reading that very Quran he worked so hard to compile.
That tragic parallel brings us to the 4th caliph, Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law. The text puts a huge emphasis on his youth. Get this, he was the first child to convert to Islam, at just 10 years old. Historically, he's remembered for profound justice, incredible courage, asceticism, and deep wisdom. But tragically, his life also ended in assassination in the year 40 AH, when he was struck down by a Khawarijite during Fajr prayers in Kufa.
Moving on to Part 2, Warriors and Early Converts, Talha and Al-Zubair. Let's look at 2 companions brought into Islam super early on by Abu Bakr, and who are renowned for their absolute, unflinching bravery on the battlefield.
The source uses this really powerful direct quote from the Prophet spoken during the grueling Battle of Uhud to perfectly cement Talha's reputation. It says, "Whoever wants to see a walking martyr on the face of the earth, let him look at Talha ibn Ubaidullah." To be historically recorded as a walking martyr tells you pretty much everything you need to know about his incredible courage and altruism.
And similarly, we have Al-Zubair. He actually converted to Islam when he was merely 15 years old. The text highlights a totally unique distinction for him, naming him the ultimate disciple, or Hawari. It's an incredible title for sure, and it really sets him apart as a fiercely dedicated defender of the early Islamic state.
But despite those distinct honors, the source inextricably links their historical narratives right at the very end. Both Talha and Al-Zubair were assassinated in the exact same year, 36 AH. And what makes this detail so captivating is that they were both killed after they had actively chosen to step away and withdraw from the conflict at the Battle of the Camel.
Okay, Part 3, Wealth, Trust, and Piety. This section showcases how the remaining companions supported the state through some incredibly diverse means. You see, it wasn't just about leadership or combat. It was about economics, governance, and sheer moral weight. Here we can clearly see just how different their individual paths actually were. You've got Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, who the text cites as incredibly wealthy, using his vast fortune to generously fund the state before passing away naturally at age 75. Then there's Abu Ubaidah, known as the ultimate trustee, whose life was tragically cut short by a plague. And finally, Sa'id ibn Zayd, representing a long life of quiet, steadfast piety.
Looking a bit closer at Abu Ubaidah, the text really highlights his pivotal military and administrative role. He was directly responsible for the opening of Jerusalem in 16 AH. After that, he spent his final years tirelessly spreading Islam and serving the people in the Levant,
right up until the devastating plague of Amwas took his life in 18 AH while he was still on active duty.
As for Saad ibn Zayd, the source paints a beautiful picture of lifelong, unwavering dedication. One fantastic detail here is that he converted at just 19 years old, right alongside his wife, who, by the way, happened to be Umar's sister. His character was entirely defined by piety, courage, justice, and honesty. He lived a nice, long life, eventually passing away naturally at the age of 70 in the year 51 AH.
And that brings us to part 4. The final legacies, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. We've reached our last thematic section, focusing on the one individual who managed to outlive the rest of this entire foundational group.
The text portrays Saad ibn Abi Waqqas as an absolutely brilliant military tactician. He converted at 17 and quickly became known as a master horseman and an expert archer. But his defining historical achievement? That was definitely serving as the commander who led the spectacular victory against the massive Persian Empire at the Battle of Qadisiyah. That single event subsequently opened up all of Iraq.
55. The year 55 AH. This was the year Saad passed away naturally in an area near Medina. So why does this one number matter so much? Because his death officially marks the end of an era. According to the text, he was the very last of the 10 promised figures to pass away.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider a pretty vital question. What kinds of diverse talents actually build an era's foundation? This historical source proves that a civilization isn't built by just a single type of person. It requires a complex, interwoven web of visionary leaders, massive financiers, brave warriors, and deeply pious administrators. Their 10 distinct paths literally forged the foundation of an era. It kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What diverse combination of talents and sacrifices are required to build the foundations of the world we're living in today? Thanks for exploring this remarkable history with me.